Last night, your brain built an entire world. People who don't exist, conversations you never had, places you've never been, rendered in full color, with weather, with sound, with feeling. And here's the strange part. You believed all of it, completely. No skepticism. No moment of, wait, this doesn't make sense. You accepted a reality where your childhood home had rooms it never had, where a stranger's face belonged to someone you love, where you could breathe underwater, and none of it struck you as odd until the second you woke up. You do this every single night. And here's the part that gets me. After all these thousands of years, science still can't fully agree on why. But the theories we do have are genuinely stranger than the dreams themselves. Not occasionally, not when you're stressed. Every night, for hours, whether you remember it or not. Over the course of an average life, you will spend roughly 6 years dreaming. 6 years. That's longer than most people spend in a career they'll talk about for the rest of their lives. 6 years living inside a world your own brain invented and then immediately forgot. And after thousands of years of humans asking why, after decades of modern neuroscience with brain scanners and sleep labs and electrodes, the honest answer is that we still don't fully know why you do it. So tonight, before you close your eyes and hand the controls back over to whatever runs the show in there, let's talk about the deep history of the sleeping mind. Because dreaming isn't a human quirk. It's not a modern glitch. It might be one of the oldest experiences on Earth, older than humanity, older than mammals, an inheritance we share with creatures that crawled out of the deep past. Let's start with what's actually happening up there. When you fall asleep, you don't just switch off. Your brain moves through stages, cycling roughly every 90 minutes, sinking down into deep, slow-wave sleep, and then rising back up into something bizarre called REM, rapid eye movement. It's named for exactly what it looks like. Your eyes, behind closed lids, start darting back and forth like you're watching a tennis match that isn't there. And during REM, something contradictory happens. Your brain lights up. On a scan, it looks almost as active as when you're awake. Some regions burn even hotter. The visual cortex fires. The emotional centers, especially a little almond-shaped structure called the amygdala that handles fear, go into overdrive. But at the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the rational, skeptical, decision-making part of your brain, the part that would normally say, hang on, that's impossible, goes quiet. That's the recipe. A brain generating vivid imagery and intense emotion, with the fact-checker asleep at the wheel. That's why, in a dream, you can be handed the most absurd scenario imaginable, and just roll with it. And here's the first strange thing. While all of this is happening, your body is paralyzed. During REM, your brain sends a signal down your spinal cord that essentially switches off your muscles. You lie there frozen, unable to move, while your mind runs wild. It's called REM atonia, and it's a safety feature, because if your brain is simulating running, fighting, falling, or fleeing, you really don't want your body actually doing those things in bed. When that safety switch fails, people act out their dreams, punching, kicking, leaping out of bed, so evolution built in a lock. Your brain runs the simulation, but the body stays offline. And there's one more detail worth sitting with before we get to the big question. You don't dream all night long in one continuous stream. You get REM in installments. Early in the night, your sleep is dominated by the deep, dreamless, slow-wave stage. But as the hours pass, the balance shifts. Each cycle hands more and more time over to REM, so that your longest, most vivid, most emotionally intense dreams tend to arrive in the last stretch before you wake. That final dream you almost remember, the one still clinging to you as your alarm goes off, is often the longest and strangest of the entire night. Your brain saves its wildest material for the end. Now, why? Sleep already leaves you vulnerable, unconscious, and defenseless for a third of your life. And then, inside that vulnerability, your brain decides to fire itself up and stage nightly hallucinations. There has to be a reason. Nature doesn't usually pour this much energy into something useless. So let's walk through the leading answers. And I'll warn you now, they don't all agree, and the good ones might change how you think about your own mind. Theory 1. Your dreams are your brain filing paperwork. This is the memory consolidation idea, and it's one of the most supported. The thinking goes like this. During the day, you absorb an overwhelming flood of information. Faces, facts, routes, feelings, skills. Far too much to keep. So at night, your brain sorts through the pile. It decides what matters and what to throw away. It takes the important stuff and moves it from short-term storage into long-term memory, strengthening the connections, filing it deep. And dreams, in this view, are what that sorting feels like from the inside. Fragments of your day getting stitched together, replayed, and cross-referenced with older memories. That's why a dream can weld together a person you met yesterday, a place from your childhood, and an anxiety you've carried for years. Your brain isn't telling a story, it's doing maintenance, and you're watching the sparks fly off the machine. Sleep researchers have shown this in labs. Teach someone a task, let them sleep, and their performance improves overnight. But mostly if they hit REM. Deprive them of it, and the learning doesn't stick as well. Your worst all-nighter before an exam might have cost you the very sleep that would have locked the information in. And this might explain one of the most frustrating things about dreams: why you forget them so fast. Within minutes of waking, most of a dream evaporates, and within an hour, it's usually gone completely. That seems like a design flaw until you flip it around. If dreaming is your brain deciding what to keep and what to discard, then the dream itself is the discard pile. It's the sorting process, not the saved file. You're not supposed to remember it, any more than you're supposed to remember every scrap of paper you shredded. The forgetting isn't a bug. It might be the entire point. Useful, tidy, a little boring, so let's make it stranger. Theory 2 says, your dreams aren't filing, they're a rehearsal. And what you're rehearsing is survival. This is the threat simulation theory, and it belongs to a Finnish neuroscientist named Antti Revonsuo. His idea is unsettling in the best way. He noticed something about the content of dreams. Across cultures, across people, dreams are disproportionately negative. We dream about being chased, falling, being attacked, losing our teeth, showing up unprepared, running from something we can't see. Surveys of dream content find that threatening, anxious, frightening scenarios massively outnumber pleasant ones. That's a strange design for a system that's supposed to be restful. Why would your brain, night after night, generate danger? Revonsuo's answer: because it's practicing. Picture our ancestors. 50,000 years ago, life was a landscape of genuine, constant threat. Predators, rival groups, accidents. A single bad encounter meant death. In that world, an individual whose brain rehearsed dangerous situations while safely asleep, running the drill over and over, would wake up better prepared, faster to react, primed for the threat. The dream is a flight simulator for survival. You practice being chased so that when something actually chases you, the program is already loaded. Think about that the next time you jolt awake from a nightmare about running. Your brain wasn't malfunctioning, it was doing exactly what it evolved to do. Running a survival drill, in the dark, while you drooled on the pillow. Millions of years of ancestors who practiced staying alive, handing the habit down to you for a threat that, in most of your life, no longer comes. And the theory makes a sharp, testable prediction. If dreaming evolved to rehearse real dangers, then the dangers we dream about should be old ones. And they are. People overwhelmingly dream about falling, about being chased by animals or attacked by strangers, about natural threats our ancestors faced for millions of years. We almost never dream about the things that actually kill us today. Car crashes, heart disease, paperwork. Your dreaming brain is still running drills for a world of predators and cliffs and hostile tribes, a world most of us left behind long ago. It's rehearsing for a threat environment that no longer exists, because evolution updates slowly, and the software in your skull is still running an ancient version. But here's where it gets stranger. Because if dreaming is this ancient survival tool, then it shouldn't be uniquely human. And it isn't. Watch a dog sleep. Really watch. The paws twitch, the legs paddle, running in place, muffled barks, whimpers, the eyes flickering under the lids. For a long time, we told ourselves we were just projecting, seeing human experience where there was only reflex. But the science caught up. And the science is remarkable. Researchers at MIT studied rats running through a maze during the day, recording the exact pattern of neurons that fired as they navigated. Then they recorded those same rats while they slept. And they found the same neural patterns firing again, in the same order, so precisely that the researchers could tell which part of the maze the rat was dreaming about. The rat was rerunning the maze in its sleep. Animals dream. Cats, dogs, rats, birds, even some evidence for octopuses changing color while they sleep, their skin flickering through waves of color and pattern, possibly cycling through the very displays they use in their waking encounters. Imagine that. A creature so different from us that it might as well be an alien lying on the seafloor, its whole body rippling with the ghost of a hunt or a fight or a mate. If that's a dream, then dreaming reaches across branches of life that split from ours 500 million years ago. Dreaming is not our invention. We walked into a house that was already built, moved into rooms our ancestors had furnished long before we ever showed up. Which raises the question, how far back does it go? REM sleep, that specific state where the wild dreaming happens, is found across mammals. It's found in birds, and there's growing evidence it exists, in some primitive form, in reptiles. A study of the Australian bearded dragon found brain activity during sleep that cycled between two states in a way that looked startlingly like the REM and non-REM cycle in mammals and birds. If that holds, it pushes the origin of dreaming back to a common ancestor of mammals, birds, and reptiles, something that lived over 300 million years ago, before the dinosaurs, before flowers existed. A small, unremarkable creature, closing its eyes in a world we would not recognize, and somewhere behind those eyes, the first flickers of a dream. Let that sit for a moment. The thing your brain will do tonight might be older than the dinosaurs. Now let's deal with the ghost in the room. Because you can't talk about dreams without talking about the man who made the modern world obsessed with them, Sigmund Freud. Freud believed dreams were disguised wishes, secret desires, mostly forbidden ones, that your mind smuggled past its own censorship in coded, symbolic form. Every dream, in his view, was a puzzle hiding a repressed want, and if you could just decode the symbols, you'd find the truth about the dreamer. Here's the honest verdict. Neuroscientists today largely consider Freud's specific theory wrong. There's no good evidence that dreams are encrypted wish fulfillment, or that a random object in a dream is secretly standing in for something you're afraid to admit. The dream dictionaries, the symbol decoding, all of it rests on a foundation modern science doesn't support. But, and this matters, Freud was wrong about the answer while being right about the question. He took dreams seriously. He insisted they meant something, that they came from somewhere inside us and were worth studying. He was chasing the right mystery with the wrong map. And sometimes that's how progress works. Someone asks the important question badly, and everyone who comes after spends a century answering it properly. So if it's not hidden wishes, what about emotion? That's theory 3, and it's one of the most human. This is the idea of dreaming as overnight therapy, the emotional processing theory. During REM, remember, the emotional centers of your brain are on fire, but the levels of certain stress chemicals actually drop. Some researchers, including the sleep scientist Matthew Walker, have proposed that this creates a unique opportunity. Your brain can revisit difficult, painful, emotionally charged memories in a chemically calmer state. It can process the feeling without the full sting. In other words, you relive the hard thing in a safe space, and each time, the emotional edge wears down a little. The memory stays, but the pain attached to it softens. It's why the old advice to sleep on it actually works. Why a problem that felt unbearable at midnight can feel manageable by morning. Your dreaming brain may have spent the night quietly diffusing it. There's a haunting flip side to this. In people with certain trauma disorders, this process seems to break. The dream keeps replaying the pain without ever draining it, night after night, the emotion never softening. The nightmare loops, stuck, like a needle skipping on a record, and the person wakes as raw as when they fell asleep. Which suggests that when it works, dreaming isn't just noise. It's one of the oldest forms of healing we have, running automatically, for free, while you sleep. A therapist that never sends a bill, sitting with you in the dark, working through the day's wounds while you lie there in quiet stillness. And there's a rare, dazzling exception to all of this that's worth mentioning. Sometimes, mid-dream, the sleeping fact-checker briefly wakes up. You suddenly realize, inside the dream, that you are dreaming. The world stays vivid and impossible. But now you know it isn't real, and in some cases, you can even steer it. It's called lucid dreaming, and it's the closest thing we have to standing with one foot in each world at once, awake and asleep in the same moment. It's rare, it's fragile, and it hints that the wall between the dreaming mind and the waking one is thinner than it feels. And then there's the humblest theory of all, that maybe dreams don't mean anything at all. This is the activation synthesis idea. The brainstem, during REM, fires off essentially random signals, bursts of electrical noise with no story behind them. And the higher brain, the part that spends all day imposing meaning on the world, receives this chaos and does the only thing it knows how to do. It builds a narrative. It stitches the random sparks into a story, however nonsensical, because a brain that makes sense of things cannot help but try, even when there's nothing to make sense of. In this view, the dream is a side effect. Your rational mind desperately narrating static. The plot doesn't mean anything because there was never a plot to begin with, only your brain refusing to accept randomness. It's the least romantic theory, and it might be partly true. The strange thing about dreams is that none of these theories has to win alone. Your brain is not a single-purpose machine. The night is long, the sleep cycle's many, and dreaming may be doing all of it at once. filing memories, running survival drills, softening old wounds, and yes, sometimes just narrating noise. A single system, ancient and layered, serving a handful of masters at the same time. So let's zoom all the way out. You are a creature that spends a third of its life unconscious, and a good chunk of that unconsciousness hallucinating. You inherited this from a line of ancestors stretching back past the first humans, past the first mammals, possibly to something small and cold-blooded, blinking in a world 300 million years gone. Every night, you run a program written over deep time, one you did not choose and cannot switch off, and most mornings you delete the evidence before your feet hit the floor. We don't fully understand it. We can measure it, chart the stages, watch the eyes dart and the brain glow, but the why still slips through our fingers. And maybe that's fitting. The dream is the one place your rational mind was never allowed in. The fact-checker sleeps, the censor sleeps, and something older takes the wheel. Tonight, you'll do it again. The world will dissolve. A new one will assemble itself out of the day's fragments and your oldest fears, and you'll believe every impossible second of it. Your body will lock itself down. Your ancient brain will run its drills, sort its memories, tend its wounds, and tell its stories to no one. And in the morning, almost all of it will be gone. So the next time you wake from a dream that felt more real than the room around you, don't shake it off too fast. You just touched something incredibly old. A little piece of deep time still running every night behind your eyes. Sleep well.